Coming up on Mental Health Marty, listen, we are talking about suicide and the Black community. It is not taboo. It's time that we talk about it. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Yes, it's me. It's your host, Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist, coming to you always live and in living color in Southern California, where the sun, y'all know what I say, is always shining. And I wish I could say it never rains in Southern California. Y'all, we needed it, and it did rain some this weekend to bring those triple-digit temperatures down. It's still hot, but it's not in the triple digits. Hey, how you doing? How you feeling, y'all? It's good to be back in Southern California. And I want to give a shout out to my girl, the Reverend Dr. Margarita Story, who is now the proud pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. We had a marvelous time out there, darling. That's right. That's my girl. We are so proud of you. Much love. And we had a great time. So as myself and the Mac in the back, Daryl, as a part of his birthday celebrations that we are so glad about, that we had a great time out there in Williamsport. So if you didn't check it out, didn't have a chance to, please check out Dr. Margarita's Story. You know we have her on Hot Topic Tuesdays on the first Tuesday of every month here on the Mental Health Marty Show. And she is just dynamic. Know that we love you, and definitely we are going to be in support of you, what you're doing out there. But again, come on and thank you for coming and let us know that you're listening. Let us know you're out there and where you're from. So before we get started, let me tell you what our intent is for the Mental Health Marty Show. I'm so glad you asked. Listen, the Mental Health Matters with Marty Show is intended as a psychoeducational purposes only. We are not a substitute for you seeing your therapist. We are not a substitute for you seeing your psychiatrist, your psychologist, your medical doctor, your dentist, your pastor, your boo-boo, your significant other, your dentist, or anyone else. But we are a supplement to be a part of your treatment plan to recovery. So if you're experiencing any type of psychiatric emergency, we want you to go to your nearest urgent care or dial the new mental health hotline of 988 or 911 to seek medical and professional attention to this, because we never want you to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. But y'all know how I say it is necessary that we speak up, speak out, in order that we might be able to live, and not only just live, but live our best life. Now, how do you engage? Thank you for asking, and thank you again to engage with us, because we want to know that you are participating. If you have questions, especially about tonight's topic, we want you to go over and jump over to the Mental Health Marty YouTube channel. And we want you to like and subscribe. How do you do that? Again, so glad that you asked. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe, and you'll hear that bell, and that lets you know that you have been and that you are subscribed with the Mental Health Marty Show, so that you get all of the information. My brother, how you feeling, Jeff? Always good, man. My apologies, because I was running through Baltimore, didn't get a chance to see you. Yes, Sister Hill, yes, we are so proud of her. Wish you could have been out there in Pennsylvania with us, because we had a marvelous time. Yes, we did. Today's topic, a topic that we don't talk a lot about in the Black community, and that is suicide and suicide prevention. We can no longer ignore that it does not happen in our community. I have to go with one of my favorite psychologists, is psychologist Rita Walker out of Houston, out of the University of Houston, who is a professor there in the psychology department, along with dealing with equity and race relationships. She says it this way often, that we in the African American community are in so much trauma that we no longer recognize when we are in crises. And I have to agree with her. Too often, we are in such crisis mode that we often make the sometimes final decision of suicide when we're making a permanent decision about what seems like a permanent situation that is really can be temporary. And I don't want us to make light of this serious matter today, because I think in our community, suicide comes in all different types of rationales and all different types of ways that we don't even talk about. Yes, there are sometimes the most obvious versions of suicide, whether it's fatal shots through gunfire, drugs, alcohol, or some of the other things. But we have to look at when we refuse as a community to take our medicines so that we can remain healthy, when we refuse to do the proper diets that's going to make sure that we're healthy, when we refuse to sometimes and whether it's living on the edge by driving too fast, by living on the edge by taking too much alcohol or other type of psychotropic and prescription medicines. Those are definitely serious things we have to talk about in our community. And keeping silent is not the answer. Not talking about it because we are not comfortable with it, it is not the answer. And I want to challenge all spiritual leaders out there as well, because me being a licensed and ordained minister, I also have to say that we have had an incorrect stance and view when it comes to suicide, because many of us don't know how to talk about it who are clergy, and we make these sweeping statements that makes us, especially as Black men, keep our pain secret and silent, and we don't know how to cry out for help. But I'm so glad that we have a great extreme panel tonight that is here to talk about this particular topic. So I want to give a trigger warning already to if this topic is, we're going to be very, very plain, we're going to be very descriptive, and we're not going to hold back sometimes with the sensitive topics. So if any of these things, please, if you have younger children, we don't want you to turn away from this, but we want them to have the dialogue and the conversation with them as well. Because one of the fastest growing numbers that is growing in suicide, and we say it this way, completed suicides, are those who are under 16 years of age. I was doing some studying here. Suicide rates among Black males between the ages of 10 and 19 years old have increased by 60%. Let me say that one more time for those who are in the balcony and got a busted speaker next to them. Suicide rates for Black men, Black males between the ages of 10 and 19 years old have increased by 60% over the past 3 years. Data does not show us that community violence, socioeconomic struggles and stresses, perceived discrimination, stigmas, and interpersonal and family conflict are greater predictors of suicide in Black children and adolescents than in their white counterparts. We have to look at that men are 4 times more likely to attempt and even complete suicide than their female counterparts are. And that we cannot leave out the LGBTQIA communities, especially when it comes to our transgender community as well, as many of them have experienced greater levels of suicide, 4 to 6 times greater than their white counterparts. Suicide is preventable. Let me say that again. Suicide is and can be preventable. Why do you say that, Marty? It's preventable when we have conversations and we have realistic conversations and viable conversations without judgment, without ridicule, but full of love and support so that we can help our community out. And that's what we're doing today. So I'm so glad to have with us a returning, I don't even consider him a guest because he's a part of the Mental Health Marty family. And I'm so glad that he's here with us, even though he's fighting a cold. Listen, this brother will press his way. I appreciate him. He is a man of his word. And I'm so glad to have back returning with us, writer, author, speaker, advocate, none other than the great person himself by Richard. Come on, Richard. How are you, my man? How you feeling?
Hey, Marty, I'm good, man. How are you? Pulling
Man, I
through.
can't
We're gonna make
complain.
this happen, man.
You gonna make it happen, man. I'm so glad.
Yeah,
Yes, Valerie, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us today, Richard. Man, what's been going on? For those who don't know who you are, you my brother, Richard. You're my little brother, man. I love you, man, and love the
love
work
you too, man.
that you are doing, Richard Taylor Jr. Listen, if you don't know him, you got to know him. He's a profound, prolific author of about 15 million books. I'm trying to grow up and be like him. He's a worship leader, a family man, everything. I'm not going to make you laugh because I don't want you to cough out of control
Yeah,
or
I'm
anything
definitely
like
gonna
that.
call.
But Richard, Richard, talk to us, man. Tell us, for those who may not know who you are, talk to us about your what you do and why you are in this thing called mental health and as a mental health advocate.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I like the term advocate, even though people have placed the label expert out there for me as of late, which,
Yes,
hey,
sir.
from your mouth to God's ears, whatever it might be. But
Yes, sir.
man, you hit it on the head. You hit it on the head, right? Author, speaker first, and I think you got a chance to
Okay.
see that firsthand a few months ago
Yes, sir.
when we were together in California.
Yes.
Definitely on that Saturday, man. That was a phenomenal time with the young men there in
Man,
San Bernardino. So,
yes.
man, thank you for having me. I just want to make sure that people know Marty is real. When he says he's going to do something to piece the dots together, he does it. And so, speaker, author of 7 books. I'm getting ready to work on number 8 now, man. A lot of my work focuses
Wow.
around mental and emotional health. And heavy
Yes.
in the suicide prevention realm as well.
Yes.
Podcaster, like you said, worship leader out here. Not even worship leader, man. They elevated me, so I'm overseeing. I'm worship pastor now at A Seattle Church down in the South Lake Union area here in Seattle, Washington. Board of directors member for the National Alliance on Mental Illness out here in Washington
Yes.
State, NAMI East Side,
Yes.
and also certified in mental health first aid and suicide prevention
Wow.
first aid as well. So I take the work really serious, man.
Yes.
And I'm not about the titles and the labels and position, but I think that when you talk
Hmm.
about this work, it's important, man, to just really put it all out there. I'm learning to celebrate the fact that it's not just the lived experience, but it's everything that's come from it since.
Yeah.
And so for me, what
Yes.
got me into this work, I mean, like you said, a lot of folks might know already, but man, it started from my time. I'm originally from Chicago. I know we got another
Hmm.
Chicago on tonight too, which is dope. So yeah, man, I've only been in Seattle for the last 5 years, but born and raised in Chicago. And during that time, from the age of 10 to 20, dealt with bullying. Well, really at the
Yeah.
age of 10, I dealt with bullying. That opened the doorway to anxiety. And in this
Yes.
bullying, a lot of it had to do with my weight. And so, like, I'm glad you mentioned the
Hmm.
trigger warning piece. If anybody finds himself triggered tonight, I would actually encourage you to lean into the trigger. The reason being is because a lot
Yes.
of times when we hit those triggers, it's easy to hit the flight or fight or freeze mode.
Yep.
But I actually want to say, instead of flying away or freezing, let's take the opportunity to look that trigger face to face, because it could actually be
Come
a
on.
doorway for some healing and some
For
transformation and
healing.
freedom there. And so for me, trigger warning with that, man, at the age of 10, after being bullied so much because of my weight, I had this idea where I said, if I just take a blade to my skin and try and cut off some fat, maybe things would be different. Of course, that didn't happen,
Hmm.
but what it did was it opened the doorway to what we would identify as self-mutilation. Shortly
Yes.
thereafter, over the next few years, it transitioned into actual suicide attempts. And even though
Yes.
things had changed drastically for me during that time, like became a standout athlete in the sport of football,
Hmm.
scholarship
Hmm.
galore, like offers all around the
Hmm.
country. And even with that, I still had this internal battle that I was dealing with. So what transitioned into trying to balance out mental and emotional pain with physical pain turned on to full suicide attempts in many different forms.
Yes.
Um, I found out that I had a heart issue or condition, heart murmur, my senior year of high school, and ended up having to stop playing football, got everything stripped away,
Hmm.
and the depression really
Hmm.
just kind of took another turn for me. And when it did, I just went into
Right.
a downhill spiral. So started off at Northern Illinois University in 2006. From August of
Hmm.
2006 to January of 2008, almost 18 months, my life spiraled out of control. Not only
Right.
dealing with depression, but became highly suicidal. During that time frame, I ended up getting into a relationship where I was the victim of domestic abuse. I was failing in school with a 1.4 GPA for like 3 semesters straight. So on academic probation, getting ready to get kicked out. And then I also went from 200 pounds to 370 pounds in the span of that 18 months as well. So dealing with a lot of bad physical issues too. Dr. King Day of 2008, which was celebrated on January 21st that year, I basically got fed up. And I said I couldn't do this anymore. And I ended up taking a blade down my wrist 5 times where the word, you can't really see it. Well, I'm not angling the right. Where the word love sits. Where the word love sits on my wrist, which is actually the title of my 3rd book, Love Between My Scars. But in this, man, that was my like bottom. Mind you, like during this time when this happened, I was one of the leaders for my school's gospel choir. I worked in the Residence Hall Association. I was doing work within like different work around the campus. I was a ministry leader at that time, right? And I love what you said, Marty, about, you know, the conversations we need to have amongst church leaders and church folks in general. I appreciate good intention, but what we've got to address is bad theology. And so with that, I think that we've got to be mindful.
But don't go there. Don't go there.
I'm just saying, man. I think that we've got to be really mindful of what we put out here as ministry folks, leaders, whatever the case might be, when it comes to truth and understanding around mental health, around suicide, and just and even us being educated so that we can actually do our part to help. Right? Faith without works is dead, and we've been praying for decades. But I'm like, what actions are we putting behind it here on earth to make a difference? So that's me. I don't want to preach. I'm not trying to, let me get off my soapbox, but that's why I'm in this work, man. It was after that final suicide attempt where I was forced to go and seek out therapy from the dean of students at my college. That was literally the only way I was able to stay in school. But from that, it really did start this transition and change. Got around the right community. And was able to get the help that I needed. And I think it really just kind of shifted my thought process around what I was capable of doing. Started sharing my story. I've been in the church since I was a kid. So having to be forced to do like little Easter speeches since I was 5 kind of got the stage fright out early. Right. And
you had a drug problem like we all did.
Man, what is so
drug to Sunday school, drug to everything.
Man, listen. 7 services every Sunday right now. And so in that, man, it really, I think that just pushed me into the space of the stage, man. And I started my company, Tailor Made Empowerment. And that just really blew up over the last 5 years. So I've been in it for a decade, but the last 5 years where people really started to pay more attention to what I had been putting out around mental health is where we really started to see a change. So it's opened up the doorway now to so many different things, you know, speaking at colleges, working with a lot of corporations now, doing content development for a lot of our health professionals in like Blue Cross Blue Shield. You could talk about Evergreen Health, like literally being on the back end of how do we start to reach communities of color with this message around mental health and suicide prevention. So yeah, man, I got a passion for it. I got a passion for people. And that's why I'm in this work.
I love it. I love it. You know, and real quick, you know, we talk about that, and I love what you said, that we as the body of Christ, I say it this way, we have to alter our theology because we have bad theology when it comes to suicide. Definitely, y'all, I'm giving a shout out to last week. So check out last week because Dr. Margarita's story was on point when she talked about the theology of suicide and what that is. So I'm not going to regurgitate that. But I love it because there are so many who will go to church every Sunday. There's so many young people, older people, middle age, who go to church who are still depressed, who are still have high anxiety, who still have suicide ideation that we are not addressing. And y'all, I believe in prayer. I believe in fasting. I believe in reading my Bible, all of those things. But you still need sound counseling to come alongside you to support you along the journey as well. So I appreciate you, man, with sharing that because, you know, we think that too often in our faith communities, that if it's not immediately healed or something like that, then there's something wrong with us and our faith. And that's not the case. It's about getting the proper support and help that we need. Listen, let's go ahead and bring your other fellow Chicagoan in the room. And this brother, listen, I keep adopting all these little brothers. You listen, loved his message. He was on last month. And he's a very, very, also very powerful, and so glad to have none other than author, speaker, y'all. I got all these pastors on here tonight. But just a man of God himself, none other than Robert H. Marshall Jr. What's up, man? Okay, you're on mute, and let's get you going. Don't ask me what happened. You done muted yourself? I still can't hear you. Back in the back. I know that's not your fault, but what can you help us out with? 1 2 1 2. I still can't hear you. I don't know what happened. Let's get your sound going on. And okay, we're working on that. So let me do this.
Can you
hear me? We go.
All right.
I can hear you now.
There we go.
There we go. What's up, Robert?
Listen, I'm excited to be on here, man. I'm such a huge fan. Oh my, I'm like fanning out over here. Like Richard, like you're the man. I'm fanning out over here. So I'm excited to be on here, man. I'm so excited. I was telling my wife, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna be on with it, and she's like, Rob, if you don't calm down, man, and stop embarrassing me, listen,
I had the same effect with Richard as well. I feel that about all you guys when you guys come on my show the first time. So I try to be calm and cool and collected, like, yeah. But inside I'm going, oh my God, these brothers have the nerve to come on my show. I love it. But Robert, talk to us, man. You have such a powerful testimony and story, and even in your journey and fighting those thoughts, because oftentimes we don't like to talk about having suicide ideation or any of those type of thoughts, because we think that it's especially among men. Oh, you must be weak. It's not a sign of weakness, y'all. It's a sign that the pressures of life have gotten so heavy on us that right now we're not thinking rationally. And we just want, here's my thought, Richard and Robert, we just want this pain to end.
Yeah.
And when you're in pain, you don't think rationally. You just say, listen, I'll do whatever it takes for this pain to end. And once the pain ends, I make it be able to resolve this situation. But Robert, talk to us, brother, for those who may not know you, or this is their first time seeing who you are. I know you're geeking out over here on Richard. I geek out over both of you. I'm geeked out about our next guest who's coming on too, because she is like thebomb.com as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us, Robert.
Listen, I want to comment on one thing you just said. Yeah, suicide is, I know for me in my experience, really became attractive because the pain that I experienced here was so bad. Death seemed easier to deal with. And so when you
wait a minute, no. I don't want you to miss that. I don't want our listeners, because the pain was so real and so great. And we want to be heard without judgment. Thank you, Jeff. We want to be heard without judgment. That you thought, even if it's for a second, that death must be easy.
Death was easier than life.
Wow.
Because there are times and there are situations where the pain inside is so great, where you can literally, you can feel it, and you're just, and even with self-mutilation, where you're just looking for relief. It's like pressure. Any bit of relief seems better, and seems better than living. And so I've been in those places multiple times in my life. As a survivor of sexual trauma, I have over 9 abuses over my life, both male and female. I grew up in church. I was a kid preacher, but the people that were preaching to me, instead of praying for me, they prayed on me, and winded up a lot of compromising positions. And I always thought it was my fault. I thought it was my fault.
Yeah.
I thought I was the one with the issue. Matter of fact, I don't even think I mentioned it last time I was on the show. One specific person who was an abuser, he's a bishop or apostle or whatever his title is now. I remember after molesting me, he looked at me and said, something is wrong with you. You need to go pray and get that spirit of homosexuality off of you. And looked at me and said, it's your fault. And so for my entire life, I carried that around as it was my fault. And like many men, when you experience sexual traumatic experience, but trauma, any type of trauma that you cannot, that does not make logical sense, we fold it up in a napkin and we put it in the corner in our subconscious mind. And we act like it doesn't impact us. We don't see it. We don't feel it until we do. And when we do, oftentimes it is too late. Because by that time, there's either a trail of tears, there's a trail of bad decisions, there's a trail of our own blood, and sometimes others in our hopes of trying to live and just try to feel normal, or to feel like we matter. So listen, I that's been my story. I've been in, I've had suicidal attempts and ideations, my life as well. I remember one time feeling so bad that going through so much stuff, that I live in Chicago. And if you live in Chicago, you know how crazy this is. I was too afraid to physically kill myself because I didn't want to go to hell. Bad theology, right? So what I would do was I would literally sleep with my door open, the door to my apartment open during the nighttime, and I would pray that somebody would come in, rob me, and kill me, because I did not want to live. I did not want to live, and in Chicago, that's a lot. That's a thing. And so. I'm here by the grace and the mercy of God, right? But even as a father, now a father, a husband, a pastor, an advocate, an author, all the different the hats that I wear. And I'm here because there's so much going on in the world right now. But I'm here because even though I'm in all these spaces, and many of us, we wear all of these hats and wear all these things, and so many people, there are times and moments that we still struggle now, where we have to be intentional about caring for ourselves and being well and being intentional about that. Because even though we may be doing 1,000 things, one thing that I'll be transparent about, I still struggle with anxiety. So anxiety to the point where you start feeling overwhelmed. You have all these responsibilities, and then you start feeling as if you start looking at the extent of what you have to do. And then you look at your worth and what you have, and you don't feel like you're enough, and you're trying to figure out how in the world am I going to do this. And so anxiety steps in, stress steps in, and then we have to be careful, because suicide for some doesn't you just don't jump there. There's oftentimes steps, and there's things, there's little red flags and traits in your heart and your mind that you tend to process through. And if you are not transparent and open, or have a safe space where you can talk through these things, work through these things, most men, what we do, we take it to the chest. We take it to the chest. We swallow it. Because we at a young age are taught to, that we should not express our emotions, and the only type of emotions that we are allowed to express are being horny and being angry. Those are the only two that are really that we're able to talk, or we're able to express, because we're either, and both of those things are for certain. One is to protect ourselves, the other is to serve other people, right? And so those are only ways we are able to express our emotions. But the Bible says this: we were made in the image and the likeness of God, and that our emotions, all of who we are, right? All of who we are a direct reflection of the character, the DNA, the culture in which the culture of heaven and God, right? All of those, every emotion, God created it. And so we should not be afraid of our emotions, and we should have ashamed of them. Or ashamed of them, right? We should know that God gave me these, and what we have to learn how to do, instead of shutting them down, learning how to listen, learning how to learning how to take heed. And for some people, I hear some men say, well, I can't be all emotional. I can't be. Listen, what I am saying is that we should listen to our emotions, but I am also saying you don't have to always be driven by your emotions. There's a difference between listening and allowing your emotions to drive, right? So you have, right?
You said a lot. That's good. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I'm on a mission to do is I help through some of the books that I write. I help boys and men overcome adverse childhood and traumatic life experiences. And a lot of that stuff, what I do, my work always has to do. It starts with tearing down unhealthy definitions and understanding of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a boy, because oftentimes we learn, especially in urban communities, our definitions often comes from toxic places. It comes from people who are not men or men who were broken themselves. It's like a crack foundation. Anytime you build a house on a crack foundation, I don't care how nice the chandeliers are. I don't care how nice the drinks are. I don't care how big the TV on the wall is. Eventually, if you put enough pressure on that house, it is going to fall. Crack. And that is the state of many people in America and around the world right now. We're looking at, hey, look at my chandeliers, look at my TVs, and then you have these
cracked and broken.
Right, cracks and broken. And when the right amount of pressure is applied, that is when life happens. But like you said, suicide is preventable. It is preventable. It is.
And I love it because it's really about having these type of I'm saying what it really is about having these type of conversations. And both you and Richard have done an amazing job because you guys are leaders in your churches. You guys are, and oftentimes suicide has no respect of person, no respect of culture, no respect of sex, no respect of classism, no respect of how much is in your bank account. You're fat, skinny, ugly, pretty, long hair, short hair, no hair at all. It has no respect of a person, and so we have to, because oftentimes the faces. What we consider the face of suicide is often not who we depict in our mind or what we depict is like in our mind. Yeah. Richard, you were going to say, go ahead. I hear you with that. You say, okay. Listen, amazing. I want to bring in our third guest in here tonight. She is an amazing parent. She is also the founder of Rally Up Magazine, which is a mental health magazine. We are so glad to have her stay up late with us tonight. She's on the East Coast, y'all, out of Maryland, and she is phenomenal. And I'm honored to have her as the first time on the show. But y'all, it's not going to be the last time. You know, I love great people. She has a beautiful spirit and soul. So let's welcome to the Mental Health Marty Show for the very first time, but not the last time, none other than Mrs. Nikki Powell Cotman. Miss Nikki, how are you, darling?
Hello, kings, kings. I'm over here just like, I mean, I just have a different view when I hear, our kings to be able to be in that space to say, I'm healed.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to reach back and save some lives.
Yes.
I'm just over here like, yes.
I knew you were. I said, I got to bring my sister on.
Hard. I know your journey's been hard, but just this side of the healing, is what's going to change the other men that's coming behind. So keep telling your stories. And that's just one of our platforms of just Rally Up Magazine, is the fact that we don't highlight enough. We're highlighting all these other things that's going on, in the world, and want to highlight the bad. But let's highlight the good. That the fact that although you went through the things that you went through, that you came out on the other side. You're thriving and you're reaching back. You're rallying up, because that's what rallying up is about.
Come on.
And pulling others to say there is hope on this side. Suicide is preventable. And the fact that you're going to make it. There is some good on this side, because oftentimes when you're in your mess and when you're going through the stuff that you're going through, you don't feel that. It doesn't seem like it's going to be temporary. It seems like it's forever. And so that's why it's easier to choose that, to just come, like you said, come out of that pain. And so I'm just blessed. I'm just over here just like, I'm so blessed to just be on this platform with great kings, you know, hearing y'all stories, Marty, what you're doing, creating a safe space, you know, although we speaking out loud about us very sensitive topic, but it's still a safe space. It's still a safe space to say it's okay. Let's talk about this. Let's have this conversation. So I'm just honored. Just you reaching out to me and asking me to be on your show. I'm super duper excited.
Well, I'm super duper excited about you. No, for many purposes. First, this is your first time on the show, and I love people to know, one, who you are. You talked about Rally Up Magazine, and why this mental health. You started in 2018. What made you and I'm sure your husband decide you want to help our community deal with mental health, because we're not talking enough about it?
Here's the thing. My personal struggle with, you know, mental health started at the age of 12. I had anxiety. And this was, when I was diagnosed with anxiety, it was not even talked about. No one wanted to talk about it. It wasn't even a topic. So as I moved on through life, try to make it the best way I can, didn't have any therapy, anything. When mental health came to my doorstep, this is the first time I even heard about a suicide attempt, children experiencing mental health. My daughter had her first attempt at suicide at the age of 13. And so with her attempt, it just opened up like a scary world, a very scary world. It was definitely, we became like the black sheep in our family. People didn't know what to say to us, how to approach us, how to provide support for us. It was so alone. And then in that process, because I wasn't educated at that time, I was going to school to be a teacher. I changed my profession to psychology, and because I wanted to eat, sleep, and everything, mental health. And so I changed my profession to psychology, and I'm trying to adjust my camera a little bit. I feel like I'm out of
That's all right.
So I changed my profession to psychology, and and I just started to eat, sleep, and everything mental health.
Love it.
I wanted to learn, because she was in and out of institutions, and I felt like she was about to get lost in the system, because I was sitting around this treatment table, and they're just constantly pumping her up with medications. I took her there, and it's supposed to have been 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a month turned into 2 months, 3 months. Next thing you know, she did her whole what was that, the 8th grade year in the institution. I didn't know how to get her out of there, because they kept saying that I wasn't equipped to take care of my daughter. And this was after her second attempt. So she came home after her first one in 2 weeks, but then she ended up back in there. So at that time, I can't keep sitting around this table and not know what I'm talking about. I can't keep sitting around this table and not being able to show up for my daughter. So I became a huge advocate, because I had, like I said, I learned everything I can about mental health, so that I can be around that table and start speaking some things that made sense to get my daughter out of there. So that's why I'm big on support systems. I'm so big on support systems, and parents. I'm that advocate. I create the lounges and for parents, because a lot of parents do not know how to show up for their children. They're
I think we had a little difficulty there. Yes, I love it. What Nikki is talking about. Can you hear me, Robert? You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I got you. Yes, sir.
Okay. I think Nikki froze there, but her story is so important, especially when we're talking about children and being a parent. And I love what she was saying there, because too often when we're talking about these things, we are told that we're not equipped. I love it. We're not equipped to raise our own children who have mental health challenges. And that's not even the case. And too often when we start to believe that. And I love that she talks about, and thank you, Daryl, for working on getting Nikki back reconnected, y'all. Too often we start believing that too. So we feel inadequate in those stages. There we go, darling. You're back with us.
Yeah. Oh, I got lost. Oh, And I am
it's
just
okay.
like,
It's okay.
Yeah. Yes.
We right there with
okay.
you, and I was just sharing even what I was saying that, and I love it because you're talking from a parental view, and thank you for your transparency about when your child is in the system or now has gotten involved, and you didn't know how to you didn't quite know how to help her. You knew that something needed to change, and then they start telling you that you weren't even equipped to take care of your own child,
Mm,
and even and I applaud you that you did not give up. You're like, no,
I
this is
didn't.
my child. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to help her. Talk to us, Nikki, about it, and I want you to speak to parents who might be going through whether it's suicide with their children, whether it's depression with their children, anxiety. A lot of our children are having challenges going back to school and this adjustment. What do you tell a parent who has been in your situation or you they're in where you have been? How do you encourage a parent to hang in there? Because I think that is so key, and thank you for coming from a parental point of view with that as well. What do you tell that parent? How do you tell them to hang on?
Um, Usual bottom line is we are so can get easily wrapped up in the situation, meaning what that
Yes.
child is going through and how they're
Yes.
really throwing maybe the household off, you off,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
missing the place that you,
Yes.
okay, obviously it's obvious your child is going through something that's not normal. So maybe they went from being, maybe a scholar or just kind of, who your child is. But then they started going through
Yes.
some struggle. And we're so quick
Yes.
to get wrapped up in a situation. So you want to approach it with discipline. You want to approach it with, you
Yes.
know, aggressiveness. But you're not
Yes.
approaching it with empathy to know that, first
Mm,
of all, if we struggling because of this world, what do you think this
yes.
child might be? If you know that the
Talk to
school
us.
systems are not the same, what
Talk
you
to
got to
us.
approach it with some empathy. See, we don't,
Right.
we think just because they kids that they're not going through, but they're going through. If we're going through as an adult,
Yes.
you have to approach it with
Yes.
empathy when it comes to that
Yes.
child. So
Talk to us,
that's the
Nikki.
number one thing. First of all, step back out of the situation. No, okay, they might be, let's keep it 100. Self-medicating, weed,
Right, right,
drinking.
right, right, right.
They having some harsh behaviors, right? Or they starting to talk back or
Yes.
disrespectful, right? Or they might be changing their hair color, piercings,
Yes.
sneak and get tattoos, whatever it looks like. Remove yourself from that situation. Step back for a minute so you can see your child. You know what I mean? And really come
Yes.
in a perspective of empathy to say, so you can address the situation or what they're going
Yes.
through, their emotions, and finding out the
Yes.
root of their attitude, the root of what's changing.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
you can show up for your child. Because if you approaching it with trying to come with just the naked eye, just kind of seeing it from that perspective, you're not even going.
Yeah.
That's going to continue on. And the way you approach it, you're never going to get a solution to that problem. So that's the first
Right.
and foremost. And then I'm
Yeah,
going to talk about that
I
parent.
want
If you're going through,
real
okay, I'm
quick,
sorry.
because I don't want our people to miss that was that. Robert, she just dropped us some nuggets, and there's gonna move on. I'm like,
Listen,
hold on,
listen.
slow.
I'm sitting here taking notes. I'm taking notes.
Right. Because you talked about what Robert talked about earlier, behavior patterns. When behaviors change drastically, that's a warning sign. When they
Yes.
change their appearance, that's a warning sign. When they
Yes.
change the people they hang out with, that's a warning sign. When they start to
Yes.
get, getting sharp and argue with you, that's a warning
Yes.
sign.
Yes.
So we have to, as adults, as uncles, as moms, dads, godparents, and all that, we have to look at drastic behavioral changes. That's the number
Yes.
one.
Yes.
And I love what you said. We can't, because they're already feeling bad, because one of the drastic, because too often in our community, in our white counterparts, when we start to look at anger and all those other things, they automatically go to the DSM. Children are people too. That's right, Joseph.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yes. we go to the DSM, and with our white counterparts, when they get angry, we'll say, "Oh, they're a little depressed. Oh, they have some anxiety." But when our black children get angry, we want to label them and say, "Oh, they have conduct disorder, or they're oppositional." All these other things. They don't get and are afforded the same type of empathy that their white counterparts are given. And so now we want to say they have behavioral problems. And so the system, like you said, like they told you, "Oh, you're not equipped to be a parent, so you can't handle it. Let us." They want to label. Robert, talk to us about what you were experiencing and the warning signs that the adults, and I'm going to say the adults in the church ignored and did not catch when you were screaming out for help.
So the thing was, to be honest, they weren't watching. They were too busy shouting.
Ooh.
They were too occupied by revivals, right? And I think, and not just to say that because I don't want to sound harsh. That's for part of it. But at the same time, remember in urban communities, right? Mental health was not a thing. Jesus made it all better. Right. The colloquialisms, the more you praise him, the better you feel. You got a problem, you shout it out, you scream it out, you holler it out in church, and then you're good. And anything else, it's Jesus takes it. But and I grew up in the holiness church, so it was drastically different. Old school holiness, all white, like holiness. So anything
holiness is right.
Right, holiness is right. But anything mental health, it was a devil, it was a demon. And they were not equipped to deal with it. So they would go to the altar, lay hands on you, smack some oil on you, and they start casting out devils and demons. Now, whatever. And there's still a huge theological debate about that. But however, they were not equipped. They did not have the equip. Doesn't mean they didn't love us, but because also many of what we experience a lot of times is called transgenerational trauma. And so it is trauma that does not just start with us, but it's trauma that is passed down from generation to generation. And because we never deal with it, because we shout over it, we eat over it, right? We eat over it, we sex over it, we drink over it, we smoke weed over it, we self-medicate to deal with these issues and never get the support that we need. So for me, they were dancing and shouting. But to be honest, I don't know if she's watching tonight, but if she is, praise God. But my mother had her own stuff, right? She had her own stuff that she was trying to process too. Her herself, she grew up in the foster care system. Her mother had broken relationships and issues.
Yes.
So raising me, right? I know now she was doing the best that she could, but even the best that she could really did not give me the support that I needed as a young boy. And so I would kind of get pushed off to any kind of person or man who seemed like a good person or seemed like a solid brother in church, right? And that was problematic. But it's not just church people. For me, my suicide ideation was fueled by coaches, by principals, by principals, by coaches, by all types of community, by teachers. So it was, and it created years of just trauma that I did not have language for. Years of experience. There's new research, and my area is trauma, sexual trauma. I've done a lot of research, and man, at the root of a lot of the social ills that we face in the community, a lot of the underlying current that many people don't talk about is premature exposure to sex and sexuality. But also sexual trauma. And there's new data that is coming out and research that are being done that there is a possibility that young boys are molested or taken advantage of just as much as girls by women and by men. But because it's underreported, and plus boys that are exposed to sexuality by a woman at a young age, it is seen as an initiation into manhood. And so it's celebrated. But you don't realize when you start looking right? All of the issues, the social issues, the issues in school. So I'm an educator, right? So boys are oftentimes the lowest performing students in every grade level, from elementary all the way to college. When you start doing research on why these factors exist because of number one, girls are raised. Boys are just oftentimes they just have to grow up. They just have to grow up. Mm-hmm. There's a lack of a father, lack of presence, lack of understanding. So they're trying to redefine themselves. They're exposed to sex and masculinity, toxic masculinity at unhealthy rates. And the only way that they define their self-worth oftentimes is by doing what they were taught or trained to do, and that is to please other people, and especially when it comes to sex, right? So they grow up and they have these toxic behaviors, but then they also, you'll see the pipeline, they start, because they don't have, because of the educational gap and inequalities in education, then they're behind in reading. Then they're behind in math. Then they're behind. Then they don't feel worthy, and so then they act up. Right. Then there's behaviors, and these behaviors that are being interpreted by people that don't look like them, that don't come from their culture, and so then they're automatically labels are being put on them. They're put in ISS, and it creates this lethal, toxic cycle that points the way to you're not worth it, and it creates this internal rejection. And for those
which leads
young
to
men,
the whole suicide ideation. There's a pattern.
Because I don't matter. And this is not just young boys. You will be surprised how many adult males that I deal with on the daily basis, the only thing that they feel like they are good for is sex and working. Sex and working. That is it.
Well, because
they don't.
Most men know how to be providers and protectors, and that because a lot of them want to be protectors because they needed to be protected themselves. Mm-hmm. Nikki, you were going to share about it. Okay, go ahead.
Right. But here's another element, right? We have somebody, a rapper who just got killed this week. So it's not only suicidal ideations against self, but also we are afraid of other people who look just like us. Who look like us, sound like us, and what's guiding a lot of the stuff, the killings and the murders that are happening in our community. It's motivated by self-hatred and fear. It is fear. Yes. It is fear of ourselves. It is fear of it's fear and self-hatred that we've been groomed to buy into, which points to suicidal ideation, which leads us to either we're gonna kill us or we're gonna kill you. It's one of the two.
Exactly. And that was a Roscoe's I used to frequent quite a bit. And those are not too far from me. It's less than about 30 miles from where I live and everything. But I don't want to miss the other point that you were going to be making, Nikki, because we went off, and that was a great point that you were making about your daughter and just how the interpretation of the system defining us in those regards, but not hearing the cries of that. You're making another point, if you recall what that second point was.
Well, I was just saying in general that just like you're saying, the silent cries, they are silent cries, and we have to pay attention. That was one of the first articles that was in Rally Up magazine, Mental Health magazine, was that the silent cries, and which are often missed. So as we get past that ugly exterior that the child tried to display. And we have to be careful, because that is a way that they push you away if they are even having suicide ideation, because they want to disconnect before they attempt suicide. They want to disconnect. And he hit a violent point, and I'm going to keep it 100, like I said, to keeping this real. During that time, oftentimes as parents, we are in our own mess. So at that time, I was in an abusive marriage. So how can I pay attention to my daughter if my household
you're hurting?
Let's keep it 100. So that's something else we have to work on as parents.
Come
You're
on.
going to miss those signs in your child. You're going to miss those silent cries if you have a dysfunctional household. So guess what, parents? We're going to stop normalizing dysfunction.
Talk to us. Talk to us.
We have to stop normalizing dysfunction. We
That's
can't,
right.
We
That's
can't
right.
bring, like you said, the ways of our parents and say, oh, this is normal. You know, we can't be, you know, acting a fool in front of our children and they crying out for help and they don't even want to reach out to us for help because they see
we're
you
modeling negative behaviors.
No space for me.
Yeah, well,
it's no
that's
space
the thing.
for me.
Many of us, we've been discipled. Yeah, many of us, we've been discipled in dysfunction.
It's an ugly cycle. It's an ugly cycle.
Yes.
And I'm not ashamed to admit it because this is going to help other parents. My household was jacked up from the floor up. Oftentimes, even her own dad was a trigger to her mental health, which attempted more suicides. She had 6 attempts to suicide. So guess what? I had to change my household. I had to change me. I had to heal me to reach back to even help my daughter. I can't help my daughter if I can't even get my life together.
Can't help yourself.
I can't be wrapped up in no relationship with no man, and he's have his own mental challenges. How am I going to show up for my daughter? How am I going to reach? You can't see your child. You can't even see him. You're going through your whole mess. So guess what? We got to heal us. We got to work on ourselves. We got to get in therapy. If you have relationship issues, if you can't figure out why you keep getting abusive relationships or marriages, then maybe you need to check to yourself so you could be able to show up as a whole parent.
Listen.
Thank you.
A whole parent. Definitely a person, but a parent. You can't be a parent. A full parent to be able to give that child the emotional support, the empathy, you know, all that they need to have mental wellness. So your house should be your sanctuary. So you got to build your
Say that again. That's right.
It should be your sanctuary. If it's so much toxicity in the world and they dealing at school, trying to get along, if they are being bullied, you're going to miss all that because they're going to school.
You'll miss it all.
With mess and coming home to mess.
Yep. Yes. I'm like Joseph. He says, "Ooh, we." But you're talking truth because we cannot begin to help our children until we get help first ourselves. So even if they're crying, your cry for attention and help is so it overshadows theirs till you can't see them, and we're forcing them, and a lot of times pushing them back into those detrimental cycles and situations, and so they can't get the help because we can't see that they need the help because we need help ourselves. If everyone is crying help, who's doing the helping?
Listen, I feel I don't mean to get churchy, but I felt deliverance into there right there because there's somebody that's watching right now. You are in a space, you are in a struggle, you are in a dark place. Listen, your deliverance is here today. It's time to get some help. Right? And you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be ashamed about where you are. Get some help. The shame is if you stay there. You don't have to stay there. I have a saying that healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. We get to wholeness one step at a time. And I want to tag something on that you said there. You talked about the kids and them having cries for help, but also we as adults, we have cries for help too.
We have cries for
and
help too.
Many of those silent cries, many of the things we do, the people we hang around, the stuff we consume, where we go, who we let around us that are not safe. We are looking for
those are safe coping skills.
Yes. Right. We want, and our kids see it, whether you think they see you or not. They see you. They hear it. And sometimes it is that they are impacted by it just because it's in the environment and the atmosphere. Even if they don't see you physically doing it, right? It impacts them in such a deep way. But we don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay.
I love
that. Oh my God. Listen, go ahead.
They have there's positive factors. There's positive factors. So you're talking about coping skills, right? You're talking about being able to adapt to your environment. You're talking about problem solving. If you're not displaying those things, you're not even doing it as an adult. How can you teach a child to problem solve? You're in a whole toxic relationship, or your house is dysfunctional, you know, you're basically, I mean, and if they coming to you with an issue and you're just telling them to suck it up or just get over it, like when we talking to our males,
Judgment.
or if it's bullying, you're like, go, you're telling them to deal with it in a negative way. There's those factors, those positive factors are very extremely important, which we often forget to teach our children. So how are they able to adapt to the things, the craziness of the world? They don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to adapt to their environment. They don't know their coping mechanisms are what is that? Cope. I don't know how to cope. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I mean, I know we're not going to be able to get to everything, even.
I know, because I'm going. We gotta have. I gotta have you guys back, because we're just scratching the surface, and we gotta do a part 2. We're gonna do a part 2 real soon, y'all.
We're just starting to scratch the surface.
Nikki, you are fabulous, girl. You know, you're in my family now, girl. You in the family,
right? Right. And even when we're talking about, like, just talking. Start the if you don't leave with anything else off this show tonight, it's about starting a conversation, talking. The greatest gift that you can give your child is the gift of presence. Is the gift of presence. It means turning off your phone, turning off your app, sitting down, like doing intentional. You don't know what's going on with them because we're not present. And if you want to give them, brothers, sisters, if you want to give your kids a present, give them the gift of your presence. Your presence is, I have a 7-year-old. I have a 7-year-old right now, and he's just like that. And one of the things, my son, he got jumped at 6 years old. He got jumped, and he was really upset. He was really upset, really hurt, really angry. And I had to literally come off of my job to be present with him, and kind of help him get through that process. And presence looks different. Even if he didn't want me there, I was there. So when he was ready to talk, I was there to help him. But if we are
created the avenue,
doing and going, and I know we're all trying to go, we're all trying to build, we're all trying to survive. But listen. Sometimes you got to slow down and be present. Be present so you can be.
It's not always talking. It's not.
No,
always talking.
It's not.
Being present, being aware, and let them see you. Right. You are correct.
Yes. So I know we got to go, y'all, but we got to have part 2. Before we leave, I want to leave with you just some tips and helps, because we never want to take a show like this. So here's some recommendations that by the American Academy of Psychiatry when we're dealing with suicide and suicide ideation. Listen, we have to learn how to cooperate with other systems of care involved in the lives of Black youth to promote early recognition of suicide factors. So how do we do this? Get involved with your schools, your children's schools. Get involved with programs such as Rally Up that Nikki is doing here. Get involved and get a hold of Robert's book. That he has, Echoes, and get on podcasts. Look at our podcast. Listen to other things. We're so excited about that. The second thing that you can do is this: improve, again, identification, access to care, retention in mental health, and substance use treatment for Black youth. Listen. Call us. We'll help you develop those programs. Again, Nikki has amazing resources from Rally Up Magazine. Robert has amazing resources. We don't want you to suffer in silence. We will love to help you get started with creating these type of access to mental health care. 3, support some evidence-based resilience programs in Black youth. Listen, get connected somehow. Call your insurance provider. If you don't have insurance, call Medicaid. Call them and see what they got to do. They cannot refuse you mental health services because of lack of funds or anything else. That is illegal. Number 4, help promote some research for potential risk factors, including structural racism, biases. In other words, we're saying show up, get involved. Don't accept the present status quo as that being acceptable. I keep pointing us back to Rally Up Magazine, because I love this magazine. I love what Nikki is doing. I love what Robert is doing. We love what Richard is doing. There are plenty. We watch enough foolishness on social media. Find some social media on TikTok, Twitter, Tweaker, whatever you use, that's going to drive us to some great mental health support. Don't laugh at me. Yeah, some of these folks is tweaking. Advocate for increased investment programs. Listen, tell your churches, we need a mental health program here. Tell your school, we need a mental health program here. Tell your local fraternities and sororities, what are you doing to promote healthy mental health? Tell your social clubs and all these other things that you're involved in. We are going to be about mental health and protecting our community, especially our young people. And 6, advocate for scholarships, fundings, and loan forgiveness programs that target on student underrepresentation. There are so many scholarships out there. Therapy for Black men, they're still offering free therapy for Black men. I think Therapy for Black girls are doing it. Taraji is doing it. Shaq, I think, has a foundation that's doing these type of things. Go listen. A closed mouth never gets fed. Listen, Don't be afraid to speak up, to speak out, and to live. We're going to do a part 2, y'all. We're going to get it going. Nikki, you got to come back on the show. But for those who may be following or just maybe logged on 2 minutes ago, tell us again, how can we follow you and how do we like and subscribe and follow every platform that you're on, because we need to know more about you.
Yeah, so it's simple. Rally Up Magazine on IG. We have a YouTube that we're trying to build. Rally Up Magazine there. We actually Twitter, Rally Up Magazine. And actually, I didn't get to talk about it, but Rally Up Magazine is a product of our foundation, which is We Fight Foundation, which was established in 2016. And that is to help families of, and that's what we do, helping families of youth and young adults, that have suicide ideation or attempts, depression, anxiety. That's something that our foundation do. So that's what Rally Up is a product of that. So definitely follow follow We Fight Foundation as well on IG, and go to our websites. So that's
Nikki, thank you.
Magazine.
I love it.
WeFightFoundation.org.
I love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Thank you for staying up late, because it's late on the East Coast, and I appreciate you. But I gotta have you back. You are so powerful, and I love it. This is how we partner together, because if we can help one person, it's worth this fight. So thank you, Robert.
I appreciate you for this platform.
Thank you, and whatever I can do to support what you're doing, I'm a phone call away. Don't ever hesitate, because we're in this great fight together. Definitely.
Yes,
Robert,
thank you.
we know you have great panels. Listen, Tanya, thank you so much. She is like one of our greatest supporters. She is on here every single solitary week. So, Tanya, we love you so much. Robert, Daryl, can you show Robert's cover of the book for Echoes? And then, Robert, how do we continue to follow you, my brother?
Well, so Echoes is one of the books, but one of the books that I actually feel very befitting for this conversation. There's actually another book that came after Echoes that I put out, and it's called Win from Within. Win from Within.
Love it.
You can how to win from within, how to overcome the past so that you can dominate your present and prepare for your future. It is an amazing book. I put it out right after Echoes, but you can catch me on my website, roberthmarshall.com. You can check out my organization, IamManInc.com. But I also want to say this. We will be in Atlanta live next month, October the 7th. We've been doing a We Survive live tour where we deal with issues surrounding sexual trauma. It's a facilitated dialogue amongst, this one is co-ed, so it's both men and women, male and female survivors of sexual trauma. And because I'm on this show, I have not advertised this anywhere publicly. I am doing an exclusive retreat and mastermind for male survivors in Atlanta, October 7th, 8th, and the 9th. So you will be able to spend 3 days with me and a therapist, and we're all in the house, and we're going to be real.
Wow.
It's a time for real community and a lot of healing, and it's going to be amazing. So go to IronManInc.com.
We're planning the California trips out here
Listen,
too. So yeah.
Listen, go to IronManInc.com/events, and you'll be able to see some of the work. But please go grab my book, Win from Within. Win from within, how to overcome your past so you can dominate your present and prepare for your future. It's a great read. I wrote it. I know it is. And I know it will bless you guys.
Listen, thank you both. Thank you so much with that. Again, we never want to leave you without resources that can support you along your mental health journey. So we want to make sure if you're experiencing any type of, again, crisis or emergency, we definitely want you to type crises to 741-741. You can also go to Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Men, Good Therapy, marcelconsulting.com, or dial 988, which is the wonderful new National Mental Health Crisis Hotline that can definitely support you along your mental health journey. We want you to join us next week for our amazing show as we're going to be continue this dialogue. Next week, we're going to be talking about addictions and BIPOC communities. We have none other than DeMarcus Morton from Mindset to Recovery, Rodney and Jessica Clark from Solid Grounds Wellness in Recovery, and none other than James Bush himself, therapist, coming on here. We're so excited. Hope that you will definitely be able to join us. And look for me for Black on the Block on Sunday, September 25th. I'll be in Los Angeles. I'll give you the information for that. We'd love to see you come out and support us. We will have mental health, some t-shirts and other merchandise for you to get at that time. But in this journey called life, we never want you to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame. But you always hear me say in my mantra, we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. But always remember to enjoy your life. We'll see you next week. Take care and God bless.